So today we're going to be thinking about this question as we read, okay? I want you to listen closely. Do you agree with the author that the United States and the USSR impacted South Korea and North Korea enough to cause them to split into separate countries? So as we were reading, you guys found, oh yeah, it says that North Korea was influenced by USSR, South Korea was influenced by the United States. Do you think that that influence was enough to cause Korea to split, or do you think there was something else happening? Okay, today I am preparing questions for an article that is at several different levels called What You Need to Know About North Korea and Its Nuclear Program. So the scholars have been working on reading this article for a couple of days. We read through it slowly together. I ask questions, and we're learning the skill of annotating text. So I set out Post-its for myself in the morning. I go through, I keep a list of question stems and sample questions for Bloom's and Costas. And as I read through the article every morning at each level, I identify areas where they would best lend themselves to different levels of questioning. And then I attach a little Post-it note to the lesson so that during that lesson, I'm able to pick it up and immediately run with it instead of forgetting or trying to do it on the fly, which even as a veteran teacher is often impossible to come up with higher level questions while you're in the middle of teaching a lesson. The leader of North Korea is now Kim Jong-un, the son of Kim Jong-il. Okay, so first let's just think back through that paragraph. Does that have any information that we could underline that'll help us decide how the Kim regime would react if the United States interfered in the North Korean nuclear program? Although I do occasionally come up with a question as it strikes me in the middle of a lesson, the majority of my questions are prepared in advance because otherwise I find myself tending to use the really basic questions, level 1, level 2, and not pushing my scholars because as I'm thinking through, they're not going to occur to me unless I've prepped ahead of time and really sat down and created stems and pointed to places in the lesson where they would be appropriate.
I believe that they would fight back. North Korea would fight back because they have been in the war before with America.
So you think that the Kim regime would not allow United States interference, that they would actually fight back even if it meant going to war with the United States?
So my next question that I want you to think about is if I'm working with a function, sine, cosine, or tangent, and our input is an angle, with this triangle, am I limited on what kind of numbers I can put in? My question is if I'm solving with sine, cosine, or tangent, and I'm using a triangle, is there a limit? What's my domain? Is there a limit to my domain? Can I use any input number? Can I use any angle measurement? Or are there limits to it? Take a minute and talk about it at your tables. I think when we're creating questions and the, so to speak, better our questions, the more deeper we go, the more we want to engage their thought, the more time we need to give them to think about it. And there are some students that will hear a question and have a thought right away. And sometimes when those answers come out immediately, every other student stops their thought process. And we really want to encourage every student to kind of give that depth and that thought. So allowing students to have just a minute or so to have a discussion allows that student that has that immediate thought to voice that, and sometimes helps those students that weren't quite clear of the direction of the question to hear it from their peer, paraphrase, so to speak, or they could also call me over to paraphrase it as well. But it also offers an opportunity for students that didn't have their thought yet to have a minute to kind of review the information and think about it and come up with their own idea. And then as a group, kind of have a discussion. Pick somebody at your table to have an idea. What did you talk about? And I'm just going to point to your table and you're just going to tell us real quick. It's not right or wrong, just what did you come up with? The question was, can we use any value, using the right triangle, for an input for sine or cosine? Starting here.
I think we could use like just normal numbers, positive numbers, decimals. We didn't discuss that, but I had an idea about negative numbers. Because if we had an angle that was 170 degrees, another one that was 15, and -5, that would still equal 180.
Okay. Great idea. Hold on to that thought. We'll go over here. I use a Mobi Interwrite board to engage direct instruction. And on the interride board, there's a little plastic flap that's removable, and you can put a piece of paper there to make a drawing if you want to trace over it. I put my questions there, so I have a quick guide, a reference, so I can look down and see where am I at in my questioning, where am I at in my lesson, and also to make a mental note, where do I pick up on the next day, and then continue.
What is your claim? What did you claim that the theme is at this point? Okay, so first person. Diana, what do you think?
The theme of this book is the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Oh, now let me ask you something. Why do you think that? Sometimes you can ask a question in class, and if that student gets it right, stretch it a little bit more just to increase that rigor. They have the confidence there because they got the first question correct. But if you ask, okay, well, why do you think that? Well, what in the text stated that? Why do you think that that's the lesson learned? I agree with you 100%. But what's happened in the book that's led you to believe that?
Because they were having trouble at some time, but they try their best to figure out the things that they have trouble with.
Now, let me kind of guide your thinking a little bit more. So you're saying grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? So are they on the other side of something at this point? Are they home? I think it's really important when you ask students questions, if they get the wrong answer, find something correct in what they said, whether it's they answered the question in a complete sentence appropriately, or maybe they got part of it right. Really highlight that, and then ask more questions to lead them in the right direction.
Talk in your groups about how is Swift using satire to deliver his message. Discuss in your groups, how is Swift using satire?
Swift uses so much of an exaggeration and it's just humorous to our problem with poverty.
I feel like Swift uses satire to deliver his message by having like humorous ways, kind of, to get the people to read his things more, like, be more interested in what he has to say, and maybe take into consideration his modest proposal.
An excellent strategy to get students to participate more in your classroom when you're questioning them is to let them do a quick pair share. You can either do this by having them share in groups, they can share with a partner. This way you get more students interacting and verbalizing their thoughts before they're put on the spot and having to answer it in front of the entire class. Diana, how is Swift using satire to deliver his message?
So basically he uses humor to like grab the audience's attention, because he seems like if he uses a more serious approach that people might just like ignore him.
Excellent answer, that's absolutely right. I think there's more value in students having to go through that academic struggle a little bit when they're thinking about a question rather than the teacher just giving them the answer. The more teachers can give them that wait time, give them time to process and think, that's where the real learning happens.
I believe Swift is bringing sarcasm very much to the table to kind of broaden the idea that maybe they should do something. They're trying to guilt trip the wealthy.
Absolutely. It's a good way to direct it toward that wealthy audience. I like what you said, to guilt them into feeling bad about the situation and wanting to do something. Good answer.
Even without seatbelts, the children are kept snug. They are like eggs in a carton, sitting close together. Only 6 states have laws requiring seatbelts.
Close reading is definitely a good strategy to come up with other types of level questioning, because with close reading, you're doing repeated readings. And I'm going to go ahead and focus on our first text-dependent question. So eyeballs.
Click.
Okay, so I want you to think about what you guys have just read. And the question today is, why do you think Dawn wants school buses to have seat belts for their riders? So I'm going to go ahead and have you guys think first. What I usually do first in order for me to come up with a question is I use a backwards design planning. And what that means is basically I am putting the end goal in mind. So I start off with what I want my students to accomplish. And then from there, I develop instructional tools that I need to accomplish those goals. And then I also develop different levels of questions. Okay, so again, why do you think Dawn wants school buses to have seat belts for their riders. Yes, Mr. David.
People would die and they'll fly out the window.
Okay, so tell me more about that experience. There was that experience in the article. So can you elaborate on that, Mr. Steven?
One is Dawn wants seatbelts for the school bus to protect our the kids who do not get injured or crash, to be safe to come home safely.
Okay, and yes, David, go ahead.
Sadly, the bus crashes